All right, good afternoon, YouTube. We are back with the tarot, study of the tarot, part 3. All right. I'd like to say thank you to those who have subscribed to my channel. And let's get into it. All right, setting the scene. Whether you are a beginner, a more experienced tarot reader, before you start to do a reading, make sure you are in a quiet, comfortable environment. This means you are able to focus and let your intuition flow rather than be distracted by passing cars, phone calls, and other conversations. Once tarot reading becomes second nature to you, you'll find that you can read the tarot anywhere. But make sure that you have enough space. Initially, you need enough space to lay out the cards. The floor or an empty table would be suitable. Don't attempt readings in cluttered places, or you will find that you are distracted by the things around you. Finally, try to use the same place every time you do a reading so that it becomes your sacred place. Sit cross-legged on the floor, light candles and incense, or play soft music to soften your mood and allow you to focus. If you are reading for yourself, the more relaxed you are, the better. Try focusing on a candle flame and meditate for a few minutes. Then relax your breathing and try to drop all conscious thoughts. Rituals. Many people like to use specific empowerment rituals before starting a reading. I always keep my tarot cards wrapped in a silk cloth. This protects the cards from negative psychic energy as well as from natural elemental damage. You can create a protective magic circle where certain clothes or place items such as candles or crystals around you. There's a reader that I used to go to all the time. And sometimes she would come to my house, but most of the time I would go where she was. She always had her cards. Old school reader, okay? She always had her cards. She had them wrapped in a silk purple cloth. She had them in her bag. And she had tea candles, okay? And she would light her candles before she started the reading. But I feel like you follow what is in your spirit and your heart to do, all right? It's not like it's one size fits all, okay? We are individuals, okay, with a mind of our own, all right? To do it however we choose, okay? Whatever comes to us, all right? These are all useful for getting the right energy flowing between you and the cards, and they help to put you in the right frame of mind. They also help with interpreting the cards. Try the following. Choose your sacred place, unwrap your cards, and light some incense. Sandalwood incense is good for psychic or healing powers. Pine or rosemary for clarity of thought. Draw a circle of smoke in a clockwise direction over the tarot cards to empower them. Now, notice she says, try the following, okay? She's not saying you have to do this. It has to be this way, okay? This is not what the author is saying, all right? But you can try it, okay? Once again, whatever works for you, you will find as you work with them, okay, in your energy, in your person, in your spirit, what works specifically for you. Place one crystal in each direction, north, south, east, west, surrounding yourself. Choose your favorite crystals, but try to use the same ones each time. This is your psychic space, and the 4 elemental placements create a circle of protection. After you have finished your reading, uncast the circle by removing the crystals one by one in the same way you place them, north, south, east, and west. Apart from the cards, candles, incense, and crystals, you don't really need any other props. Okay, sometimes you'll see in people's readings where they just show the cards, okay? Then you'll see crystals and you'll see some of these things around, all right? Incense, so on and so forth, all right? That they feel, creates the space that they want to do a reading, all right? Apart from the cards, I read that already. If you're doing a reading for someone else, you could pass a crystal pendulum over the cards to draw out any negative energies. You see this picture here, this woman is holding a pendulum, okay, and working with her cards, okay? There's many uses of a pendulum besides just, answering the questions yes and no. There are a couple books out there. I have one, I think it's called A Little Bit of Pendulum or something like that. I have a pendulum class that I do. I've been doing it for about 3 years now online. And I would hold a class, but now I can just do it one-on-one if you're interested. I've been working with a pendulum for well over 20 years, all right? It's just like everything else. It's practice, okay? But this is basically showing how you can work with the pendulum in terms of doing your tarot reading. And sometimes when I'm doing a tarot reading, I have to stop, okay, and ask my pendulum for a little assistance, all right? It is a good idea to keep a tarot journal. This is a great way of building up your knowledge. Okay. One thing I want to get back to this about the pendulum. It says if you are doing a reading for someone else, you could pass a crystal pendulum over the cards to draw any negative energies. All right. Like I said, a pendulum is for more than yes and no. A pendulum can be used to remove negative energies. All right. It's in that book. I have a little bit of pendulum. I think that's what it's called. Okay. But nevertheless, it is a good idea to keep a tarot journal. This is a great way of building up your knowledge. Your insights and interpretations give you the key answer to any question, especially if you read back over your notes after the reading when you are more objective. And remember, this information, these books are a guide. All right. It's nothing saying here that it has to be this particular way. That doesn't even make sense or resonate. But if you want to follow the exact way, all right, as a beginner or starting off, then that's fine. I mean, the exact way of whatever book that you may read, if you choose to do that. All right. But it is a science to it. Okay. So, it's good to learn the specifics of it before you just go into it. Now, folks didn't always do that, though, so it's still good to learn. All right. Shuffling techniques. The whole point of shuffling the cards is to make choosing them as random as possible. Tarot cards are larger than ordinary playing cards and do require a little dexterity if you want to shuffle them directly in your hands. There are very few hard and fast rules for shuffling, so do what is most natural for you. But always make sure you shuffle the cards face side down. Below are 3 different shuffling techniques that are simple and effective. Before you start shuffling, however, make sure that all the cards are in the upright position. In other words, the pictures are facing you in the right direction. Don't turn the cards upside down while shuffling if you can possibly help it. Technique 1. Lay the cards face down on the floor or table. Spread them out wider and wider to make a long overlapping row. Then gather some of them from the left and place them on top of those on the right. Then gather some of the middle and place them on the top of the pile. Then gradually build up a pile of random cards. Do the whole procedure again and finally cut the pack at least 3 times to make sure they are well shuffled. I know that one lady that I would go to, same lady I was speaking about earlier, she would shuffle the cards for her initial, she would always do the Celtic cross spread, shuffle the cards, for her initial reading, do the spread. All right. But one thing she would always have me do, like when I do readings on here, you might hear me say, I'm going to give this a nice 3-way split, okay, where I'll split the cards. Here, let me just show you real quick what I mean when I say that. I'm just going to take out a box of cards, okay? Okay, I'll shuffle them, okay? And when you hear me saying I'm doing a nice 3-way split, okay, I'll place them down after I shuffle them. Do this, okay? That's my nice 3-way split, okay? And then do this, shuffle them again, and then go ahead, okay? Now, when I do my readings on YouTube and I pick the cards, okay? That's the way that, I want to say I learn. When I say I learn, I mean that's the way when I would go to tarot readers. These were like, before YouTube and all this shit even existed, okay? The internet, at least for the common person, okay? This is the way that they would do it. They would shuffle it, do a 3-way split. Some readers I would go to would have me do the split, all right? And some readers would do the split themselves, but I had always seen that. And then they would pick the cards, okay? As opposed to we might see people on YouTube shuffling them and the cards pop out. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I had never seen that before, though, until I started watching YouTube. But I'm not saying anything is wrong with it. I'm just saying they would pick the cards because here we're talking about shuffling techniques, all right? And then sometimes the same reader I would go to, sometimes she would lay them out and fan them out, all right, and tell me to pick the cards, okay. That was her specific way. That was initially after she did her initial Celtic cross spread. And then you have some questions based off of what she told you, or just more questions, okay. She would do a little shuffle again, tell me to split them up or whatever, fan it out, and tell me to pull the cards, okay. Been to a few readers who would do that. All right. That was kind of across the board, fanning them out at some point in the reading. All right. And then tell me to pick the cards. Okay. Technique 2. When the cards are new, they will be quite difficult to shuffle in your hands, but this is generally the preferred way. Try to drop the cards that are in your dominant or your writing hand between other cards held loosely in the other hand. Even though they are large, you should be able to hold the complete deck in one hand. Keep shuffling until you feel the cards are well distributed. Then cut the pack 3 or 4 times to make certain they are well shuffled. Technique 3. You can also shuffle the cards by spreading them out across the floor or table and simply stirring them round and round like mixing a cake. This means, of course, that some will probably be reversed. But when you lay them out, you can simply turn them back to the upright position. And we're going to talk about that, the idea of reversals. Okay, that's covered in this book as well. Keep stirring them around and around in a clockwise direction first, then stir counterclockwise. Begin to gather them together in a group until you have a pile. Again, cut at least 3 times. Drawing and choosing cards. The best way to choose cards for a layout or just one card for the day ahead is to fan them out in your hand and run your finger along the backs of the cards until one seems to quote unquote speak to you. This isn't as easy as it sounds, especially if you have small hands. Do practice, but if you can't manage this technique, lay the pack in front of you face down, then spread them out in an overlapping row of cards until you can see most of the edges. If you are simply choosing a single card for the day, you can finish shuffling as normal. Cut the pack 3 times and either take the first card off the top or cut the pack and randomly select one from the center. Choosing the card is the moment when you and the tarot merge. If you have a question or issue, focus on the subject or repeat the question to yourself while you draw each card. In some ways, the tarot chooses you as much as you choose the tarot. You will probably find that one card shouts out for attention. Other times you may be unsure if you've taken the right card or you think you should have taken the one next to it. However, remember that if you hesitated to take a card and didn't choose it, it may imply that it wasn't meant to be taken by you on this particular occasion. Once you have chosen one card for a layout, place it face up in its ordained position within that layout and continue to choose the subsequent cards in the same way. All right. This lady right here, this reader right here, she's laying out the Celtic cross spread. All right. Okay. Letting go of projections. When drawing cards and placing them in a layout, it is important to let go of your projections as much as you can. Projection can be defined as the unconscious ascription of a personal thought, feeling, or impulse to somebody else, especially a thought or feeling considered undesirable. We all consciously and unconsciously project our desires, wishes, and fears onto the tarot, and emotional involvement with the question can often override the true response. So be very honest with yourself before asking questions. It is understandable to hope you'll get positive cards that affirm your feelings or give you the all clear to make headway with your plans. We all want to be empowered and feel that the future looks rosy. It is quite hard to look at a card like death without feeling that something bad is going to happen, but there is no such thing as good and bad in the tarot. These are values we project onto each card. Good and bad are interwoven. They are inseparable. The tarot cards are neither good nor bad. Rather, they describe archetypal energies, influences, and of course, yourself. Use the information and try not to separate positive from negative when you see the images. Embracing change. Although death looks frightening, in its simplest form, it represents the end of one cycle and the beginning of another, or the idea that change is inevitable. What you do with that knowledge is your choice. Think about the cycles that may be ending in your life right now. Okay, now, period. It didn't say right, but now. Even though you haven't drawn death, there is always something beginning or ending. Think about what needs to be changed in your life to make it vivid and real. Take the death card from the pack now and study it. What emotions does it evoke? Do you fear change or welcome it in your life? If you are someone who hates change, then it might be unwelcome. In that case, maybe it's time to face that fear of change and turn it into something positive and creative. Remember, the outcome of the reading is a projection of the moment you do the reading. It is up to you to make choices generated by that energy and make your future what you want it to be. Sometimes the cards merely confirm our feelings or gut instincts, and that is enough information to give you free rein to follow your desires. You know consciously or unconsciously what your current situation is about. The tarot enables you to recognize what needs to be done, said, not said, or avoided. The tarot is a mirror of you. It reflects the deepest part of yourself. Your shadowy side is brought out in the light of the day. But how you interpret this is a mixture of traditional meaning and personal involvement. The only thing you can be sure of is that you might not see all there is to see. All right, how long? Oh, it hasn't been that long. All right, let's get in. What to ask. Sometimes you will have specific questions to ask. This is the easiest way to approach the tarot if you are a beginner because you can generally use just 1, 2, or 3 cards to get an answer. But avoid negative questions, and particularly ones that mean you are denying responsibility for your choices. Examples of questions that avoid responsibility. Will my ex-boyfriend/girlfriend come back to me? Should I change career? Rephrase these questions as follows. I want my ex back, but how can I improve the relationship between us? A career change would improve my lifestyle. Can you help me find a way to decide what would suit me best? Okay, so it's like know, what questions to ask and how to ask the questions. Be more specific, of course, and like you said, avoid questions that avoid responsibility. It's the same thing with the pendulum. You have to be very specific, okay, with it. Okay, and that takes time, that takes practice. Okay, write it down. For specific questions, always write them down before you start shuffling or drawing cards. It is surprising how the question can be distorted when you merely think it in your head. And by the time you get to choosing a card or turning it over, you can easily twist the question to fit the cards. Okay. We are all capable of distorting the truth to suit us because we all want positive results. More often than not, you just want to get some sense of what is going to happen in the near future. There is usually an underlying motive for this sense. So do try to focus on the issues and themes currently running through your life. Is there something uncertain or worrying about your current situation? Is it a relationship problem, career issue, or does it arise from self-doubt? Keep a tarot diary to clarify these issues. You might just want to use the tarot for self-development or to find out more about yourself or what themes are relevant in your life right now. Many of the spreads suggested in this book provide you with great insight into your personal journey. Often there are simply no questions to be asked. Okay, and this, we're going to get in. It says turn to page 76 for more information on reading for yourself. Okay, so this is some work here. Okay. What the author is saying here is more than just, taking out the cards, shuffle them, bam, let's see what happened. Okay. It's again, as it was stated earlier, okay, this is insight into the self, okay, into yourself, all right? The tarot will help you with that. All right, so it will help you, I would imagine, following these things even as you're doing shadow work on yourself, okay, or just working on yourself, period. All right, it will help you, but of course it requires honesty. It's like the tarot doesn't care. There's no sense of good or bad here, all right, or et cetera, et cetera. It's just going to tell you what it is. Now, what you project onto it, like we just saw here, okay, in this section on letting go of projections, all right, is something else, like I said, because we all want positive results, but the tarot does not really care about the positive result. It doesn't matter to the tarot, okay? Here is the answer. Okay, maybe you can say it's your higher self, okay, that is working through the tarot, all right, to bring to you what it is that you need to know. Your higher self is beyond the good and the bad, the right and the wrong, the positive, negative, so on and so forth. Here it is. So be mindful of the questions you ask and the kinds of questions that you ask, okay, and your projections of just hoping and wanting it to be a positive outcome. Intuition and association. After you've spent some time practicing, reading, and interpreting the cards, you'll begin to know intuitively what a card is saying, okay? But it takes some time, practice, okay? Reading, interpreting, okay? But to begin with, you must get to know each card intimately so that they are all as familiar as your best friends. This requires time, effort, and commitment on your part, okay? Work, it's work. All right, just like anything, or any kind of practice, religious practice, spiritual practice, whatever. Okay, if we want a good result, okay, it requires time, patience as well, and practice. Okay, and knowing the self. Okay, so you have a clear understanding. Am I putting what I want, all right, out here? in this spread, okay, or in these cards, as opposed to what's actually being said. Okay, but it is such an enjoyable experience that it won't seem like work. Okay, all right. Now this is just here, step by step guide. Let me see. All right, let me just read this. I'm just going to read this this paragraph. I'm not going to read 1, 2, 3, and 4. A step-by-step guide. Many tarot books suggest inventing a story around the major arcana cards using the Fool and his journey. Remember, the Fool is the first card. Well, it's numbered as 0. And his journey through each of the 21 other major arcana in order to get to know the cards. However, you can develop your intuition by forming your own association for each card. Don't look at the interpretations for each card as you follow this simple exercise, all right? I feel like here she's basically saying, okay, we're going to get into each card, okay, and the meaning, as you see, I'm flipping through of each card, the interpretation of each card. However, here she states, you can develop your intuition by forming your own associations for each card. You might see something else in that card, and undoubtedly, as you form your intuition, all right, for whatever, however you associate the card and the meaning of the card. A lot of times, at least in my experience, as you form your intuition and you looking at the card and you see something in that card, okay, it may not that comes to you through your intuition, all right? It may not be the exact meaning or the exact interpretation of the card as we will see here in the Tarot Bible and undoubtedly other tarot books. However, if you go back sometime based off of what you felt or what came to you intuitively, is sometimes you will go and look at the interpretation in the book and it might be sometimes the exact same, which is nice, okay? That's a good surprise. Or there is a correlation between what your intuition picked up and what's in the book. Not all the time though, okay? But that does happen. All right. All right. Here we go. Your first reading. All right. I'm just, like I said, I'm not going to read each step. After you've become reasonably familiar with the deck. Reasonably familiar. Nobody's saying you got to sit there and, look at this and memorize. This is an example, 7 of Cups, and memorize all this and have this all down pat and, for every single card in the deck, but become reasonably familiar with it. All right. And have spent some time familiarizing yourself with the cards. You can try a first reading. All right. All right. Let me see. Okay. Develop your interpretation skills. The tarot cards symbolize various archetypes and qualities. These are neither good or bad. They just are. It is very important the whole idea of good and bad, that's a cultural thing. All right. These are things that we have developed in society as human beings, all right, for the perpetuation of our society, of our culture, whatever it may be. It could be all the way down from family, all the way up to the larger society or the larger culture that your family is a part of. What's good and bad. It has everything to do with is this good for us as a community? Is this bad for us as a community? Will this particular thing that we are saying good, will it help to perpetuate the culture in a healthy way, or whatever the particular agenda is, so that for your culture, that the culture can survive, okay, and that it can thrive. Same thing with bad. Is this bad for us as a people? Is it bad for us as a community? Will it keep us, okay, in a state where being stuck or whatever, where we cannot thrive, where we cannot survive, okay, as a community? The tarot doesn't care anything about that. All right. These are neither, or you simply as a person as well. These are neither good or bad. They just are. It is very important to remember this when doing any interpretation, because it is human nature to judge qualities depending on their influence on us. We speak a language that splits the world into yes and no. This whole duality shit, okay? We speak a language that splits the world into yes and no, good and bad, here and there, up and down. But this polarity is in itself part of the axis of oneness, a whole. By defining here, we know that there exists. Okay, like when I was reading the Tao Te King, you can go back and look at some of those videos. Okay, so this what she just said here. It is the same thought process. By defining here, if we say here, then we know there must be a there. Okay. If we say good, then we know that there must be a bad. All right. Um, both are parts of what? The same polarity. We say we are poles apart, but what are the poles if not the longitudinal axis of the world? We all make judgments, most unconsciously, of what is good and bad. However, a worthy aphorism to bear in mind when interpreting the cards is one man's meat is another man's poison. Absolutely. Okay? Absolutely. It is not what one man's meat is. That's the meat for every single person. It's not. That's the meat for you. For someone else in another culture, another time, another space, it is poison. It is deadly. Finally, you will view these qualities from a different perspective depending on your current situation. For example, is being generous negative or positive? It all depends on your point of view at the time. Someone who is generous may well be buying your love. Alternatively, they may be buying you more time. Okay, and here's your step-by-step guide. Okay, I'm just going to read this paragraph. I'm not going to read the steps. There are no rules to interpretation. There are no rules to interpretation. And this takes practice to get to this place, to get to this point. Okay, I'm by no stretch of the imagination saying I got no, got it. I am still learning. Okay, the tarot. All right. Hey, as long as we are walking this thing called life and on this earth and on this journey, we are ever in a space of learning. And when we are not, then there is no reason. I would imagine that, okay, we're done. We're finished. Okay. This world is vast. There is always something to learn. Okay. From me sitting here looking at this mat, okay, learning and trying to figure out if I would, but I'm not going to, how these threads are made and interwoven. That is something to learn. Would it be of value to me if I choose for it to be? Then absolutely. There is never anything, okay, that would, not to learn, okay? 80 years old, 90 years old, there's still more to learn. We don't know it all, okay? So a person who may say, I've never heard of that before. Okay, if you're questioning something just simply because you never heard of it before, because you're in a space of doubt, I seriously doubt that I never heard of it before, means nothing, just because you haven't heard of it before. This is a learning opportunity. It is an opportunity to learn for you in your humanity. It came across your path for a reason. There is value to it for whatever reason. Learn for yourself. There are no rules to interpretation. Each person will read the cards differently. Each person will read the cards differently, and it has already been explained well enough before I got to this point. Why? We are all different beings, yet often the same. If there's different, the same, then we know there must be different. But what did she say here? Okay. What did she say? We say we are poles apart. But what are the poles if not the longitudinal axis of the world? We are different, yet we are the same. So what you may find, how you may interpret it, another person may interpret it that way as well. We go to a movie, we see a comedian, they say a joke, and we all laugh. We are all different, coming from different perspectives, different points of view, different worldviews, but there is something there that shows that we are the same. That joke was funny to all of us. This is just an example. There is nothing new under the sun. And sometimes you will come across someone who will interpret it completely different than you do. Each person will read the cards differently. It takes what? Practice, which takes time, openness, and willingness to learn and develop your skills and tarot language. You know, you may go to one tarot reader and say, that was good, it was all right. Would you go back? I don't have to go back. And then you go to another one and you completely resonate with that. And that person's reading may not have even been correct or as good as the other person's or whatever the case may be. I don't want to say correct, but you maybe didn't feel like it resonated with you. But for some reason, you resonate with that reader more and you keep going to that person more so than the other. But here's an easy exercise to get you started. Soon you will be able to read the tarot as if you were reading a book. The hard part is combining the interpretations of single cards in a layout. Yeah, I agree with that for myself. This is where you have to be a bit of a storyteller, and the easiest way to say, and the easiest way is to say it all out loud. All right, and here she goes with 3 different cards. For example, past, present, and future. Lay out the cards. Here she has the Star card, the 4 of Wands, and the Hierophant, depending on the question that was asked, okay, and depending on what you are reading. What does each card mean, and then how do you combine those, okay, to get the understanding or to get your question answered? Basically, this is what she's saying, and this is what she's showing here. I'm going to read maybe 1 or 2 more sections. Okay, yes or no answers. Sometimes you may want to ask a simple question that requires a simple yes or no response to determine your future. But remember that most of the cards carry both positive and negative associations. So try to analyze what the underlying motives for your questions are. Okay. Something is not right here. Okay. Before interpreting one card for a yes or no answer. However, there are cards which appear to be particularly positive and others particularly negative. The devil could easily be taken to signify a no and the world a yes. It all depends on the question, since even no answers can be positive. You may be eagerly hoping for a yes response when you ask questions like, will he/she marry me? Will I get the job? You might be asking a question to determine someone's feelings. Does my partner love me? Is my colleague a rival? The answer no to the last question would be a positive response because it shows that your fear is ungrounded. But remember that yes or no answers aren't very revealing. Damn sure aren't. There are so many other options involved in any question. Okay, just a simple yes or no is not going to give you any clarification, okay, to whatever your question is. Same thing with that pendulum. That's how you need to make sure that you know how to ask the questions, okay? But oftentimes, clarification is needed. But remember that yes or no questions aren't very revealing. There are so many other options involved in any question. Even if you simply want to know if your partner loves you, it will be more revealing for you to discover more about their feelings through an in-depth relationship spread, okay? 3-card yes or no trick. You can use the upright or reverse position of 3 cards to determine a yes or no answer. For this, you will need to shuffle the cards and make sure that some of the cards turn upside down randomly as you shuffle. Next, choose 3 random cards, lay them face up in a line. Upright cards count as yes, reverse cards count as no. Obviously, if you have 2 yes cards and 1 no card, then the answer is yes to your question, and so on. All right. I was looking up that whole yes or no thing with tarot. I don't do that. Okay. And I just started practicing that. All right. And there are some people who I was looking on a couple websites who they didn't even do it the way she did it. Okay. They have specific cards that are yes or no for them. They have very specific ways, okay, in which they do it. All right. It's different. But once again, you can do that for yourself. All right. Drawing a daily card. Another good way to develop your interpretation skills is to draw a card for the day. If you are a complete beginner, then work with the major arcana on their own first, so you really get a feel for their archetypal symbols. Throughout the day, you should think about the card, freely associate the idea, check its various interpretations, and see how it works for you during the day. At the end of the day, make a note of the card and what issues arose for you. Did the card correspond to the energy of the day, the people you encountered, your feelings, or your actions? Write down any events, encounters, ideas, or experiences that relate to the card you choose. Okay, I'm going to skip the step-by-step guide on it. Okay, and I'm going to read this real quick. Reversed cards. There are many different opinions and a long-standing debate within tarot circles about the meaning, relevance, or otherwise of reverse cards. It is all a matter of what? Personal choice, whether you heed them or not. When doing a reading, if you prefer not to use reverse cards, simply shuffle them so that the cards are always in the upright position. Alternatively, as you lay out the cards in the spread, turn them round so the upright position faces you. This is simply a matter of what? Personal choice. Tarot cards symbolize archetypal energy, and when you do a reading, you form a relationship with that energy. Your actions, feelings, and intentions are synchronized to that moment. The tarot reveals the archetypal energy that currently reflects your situation. But what do reverse cards signify? Traditionally, it was thought they simply represented the opposite of the upright card and were usually given negative connotations. But this is confusing because the symbolism of the upright card conveys the message both positive and negative. Now, this is our opinion as it is that it is confusing. Okay, if you find that it's not confusing for you and you're doing well with doing it that way, then continue on. Again, this is a guide. Others say that an upside down card reveals that the energy is there but not yet developed. The potential has been seeded, but the energy to be expressed is currently dormant, or it may be moving away from you, or is simply unavailable to you right now. Using reverse cards. If you want to use reverse cards, the simplest way to interpret them is to consider that this quality may be somehow lacking in your life right now, or that or that the qualities it represents need to be made conscious. You might need to pay more attention to that card and its full meaning. Personally, I always turn all cards into the upright position because the rich symbolism of the upright cards will tell you what is lacking, what is needed, which energy is passive, dormant, or active at any moment in your life. Take the moon, for example. The upright moon represents confusion, illusion, and self-deception. It also represents imagination, intuition, and time to discover your true way forward. If it was reversed, would this really change anything as the moon embodies both negative and positive qualities? Perhaps the only extra benefit gained from using the reverse position is to say that you need to be more conscious of self-deception or pay more attention to intuition. But the same could be said if the card fell in an upright way in a key position in one of the many example layouts. There is one particular deck that I use. If you watch my readings, I do use reversals, okay? But there is one particular deck that I use that I will not do reversals with it, okay? I just won't, all right? It doesn't feel right for me. Okay, that's the best I could say about that, all right? For that particular deck, okay? Reading for yourself. There are times when you can use the tarot for self-development, to open yourself up to psychological, spiritual, or soul-searching issues that may be locked away in your unconscious. You can always use this method when you feel the future is a big unknown factor and you want some direction. Reading for yourself is useful if you're standing on the threshold of a new relationship, new career, or big life change and need a sense of the larger patterns and energies at work in your life. This is when you don't need to ask any questions, but simply trust in what the tarot will reveal to you. I'm going to finish this out. Reading for others. Although this book is aimed very much at personal tarot work, obviously, as you are hearing the language here, there will be times when you'll want to read cards for other people. This requires a little more psychological awareness and care. We all project our ideas, feelings, and issues onto the qualities represented by the cards. What is great for you might be boring or unthinkable for someone else. You may think the Tower card is exciting and dynamic because it suggests sudden changes or surprise events, and you personally thrive off that kind of spontaneity. However, someone else might get their kicks by being in control and find that idea threatening rather than liberating. When you start reading for others, always make it a fun experience and accept that you will probably learn more about yourself by reading the tarot from a more objective viewpoint. But do take care with friends. Before you begin, ask yourself if you are emotionally involved. Do you have a vested interest in their situation? Do you want something good to happen to them? This happens. This will happen. You will have a reader who you know personally. Okay. And they may, say some things in the reading, maybe because they want the best for you, or they want you to, feel good about it. All right. Because they have a personal interest in you, your friends. Okay. And they want the best for you, even if what you're asking is not. Okay, so that will happen. The art is to remember that you are seeing the situation from your viewpoint, so try to be as objective as possible. Also, interpret the cards in relation to the question without falling into the trap of twisting things around because the friend wants to hear this, that, or the other rather than what? The truth. Reading for absent friends. You can lay out the cards and ask a question pertaining to someone who isn't present. This can be good fun or fraught with projection. Again, reading on behalf of someone else or about a mundane situation requires complete emotional honesty. Personally, it's amusing to ask questions like, what is my lover thinking about me right now? Or when I meet my great aunt next week for tea, how is it best to deal with her? Or if the blah blah party win the election, how will it affect my family? Steer away from questions like, why does A hate B? Or will Jane split up with her current boyfriend? Since these issues are really no one's business but the people concerned. All right. All right. That is the introduction complete. Now, what are we getting into? We're getting into next the major arcana and each card. All right. All right. Thank you so much for listening. All right. You all be blessed. Peace.